From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, February the 5th, 2025. We open with the press conference held last night with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump after the two leaders sat down at the White House yesterday. President Trump, in his remarks, praised the resilience of the Israeli people, in particular after the horrific Hamas massacre of October the 7th, reiterated the unbreakable bond between Israel and the United States, and Trump also shared his plans for Gaza, which included, he said, relocating the Palestinians who live there to other countries, saying Gaza was at present a demolition zone and not safe, and that the United States would take over and ultimately turn it into an international area.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace that will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all.
Netanyahu shared Israel's objectives regarding Gaza and welcomed Trump's remarks.
To secure our future and bring peace to our region, we have to finish the job. In Gaza, Israel has three goals: destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities, secure the release of all of our hostages, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. I believe, Mr. President, that your willingness to puncture conventional thinking that has failed time and time and time again, your willingness to think outside the box with fresh ideas will help us achieve all these goals.
Trump yesterday also signed an executive order aimed at withdrawing the United States from the United Nations Human Rights Council and ending funding to UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency in Gaza. Trump called the UNHRC anti-Semitic and said that UNRWA funneled money to Hamas, which was very disloyal to humanity. Israel's foreign ministry wrote that it thanked the president for his moral clarity. The Israeli Prime Minister, meanwhile, is continuing his meetings in Washington today with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Well, ahead of the meeting at the White House yesterday between Trump and Netanyahu, the Hostage Families Forum in the United States launched a mobile billboard campaign encouraging both leaders to continue their efforts until every hostage still being held by Hamas in Gaza is brought home. Gathering with the billboards yesterday around Capitol Hill and the National Mall with the message, President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, we are counting on you to bring them all home. The 79 hostages who remain held captive by terror group Hamas in Gaza have now been held for 488 days. The U.S. Department of Education this week announced investigations into 5 universities where it said widespread anti-Semitic harassment has been reported. This, it said, was pursuant to President Trump's executive order regarding additional measures to combat anti-Semitism, and in response to the explosion of anti-Semitism, it wrote, on American campuses following the Hamas massacre of October the 7th. The investigations under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act are being conducted at Columbia, Northwestern, Portland State University, UC Berkeley, and the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights Craig Traynor said this administration will not tolerate continued institutional indifference to the well-being of Jewish students on American campuses, Nor will it stand by idly if universities fail to combat Jew hatred and the unlawful harassment and violence it animates. The American Jewish Committee and 13 other Jewish organizations filed a brief yesterday saying the U.S. Supreme Court should allow American victims of Palestinian terrorists and their families to sue for damages in U.S. courts. In Fold versus PLO, the Jewish organizations say that the PLO and Palestinian Authority have been leaders in the planning, funding, and rewarding of terrorism against Jews through the so-called Pay for Slay program, which compensates the families of imprisoned Palestinian terrorists and suicide bombers, including those involved in the October 7th massacre. In 2019, Congress passed the Promoting Security and Justice for Victims of Terrorism Act, but the Court of Appeals last year ruled that the law violated the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. AJC Chief Legal Officer Mark Stern said American citizenship has many benefits. One of them is the obligation of the government to protect its citizens when they are abroad. Stern said our brief argues that there is nothing in the Constitution that prohibits Congress from allowing American victims of terror abroad to sue their attackers in U.S. courts. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, February the 5th at 7 o'clock. David Harris speaks with Alon Levin, a PhD engineering student at Columbia, about the rise of anti-Semitism on campus, recent incidents, and how anti-Israel sentiment shapes the broader campus climate. At 7:30, Steve Weil speaks with Daniel Flesch, Senior Policy Analyst for Middle East and North Africa at the Allison Center for National Security on FIDF Live. At 8, it's live basketball with the Yeshiva University Maccabees. At 10, Arthur Smith talks about his book Reach with Rabbi Avraham Bronstein. At 10:30, it's an encore of the news. And coming up next, it's Thinking Out Loud. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, February the 5th, 2025. I'm Teisha Bader. Am Yisrael Chai.